I was dangling 15 feet above my own driveway, spinning slowly in a harness, while the HOA president shrieked into her phone about airspace violations. Below me, a news van screeched to a stop, its cameraman nearly tripping over a garden gnome to catch the shot. 2 weeks earlier, all I wanted was to park my car without sparking a neighborhood turf war. Now, I was mid-air, prepping for a legal helicopter landing on my own property, while Linda hollered about Asian terrorism. If you're wondering how a laid-back, middle-aged guy with a passion for vintage muscle cars and zero patience for nonsense ended up here, it all boils down to a driveway, a smug HOA, and one entitled parking habit that turned my quiet life upside down. It started, as most suburban sagas do, with passive aggression. I'd moved into the neighborhood after retiring early from a career in municipal systems design. 2 decades of streamlining city infrastructure software had me thinking I could handle anything. I was wrong. The HOA blindsided me. The first few months were uneventful until I noticed a glossy black SUV parked just over the line onto my property. It wasn't a one-time thing. A few days later, it returned. Then another car showed up, followed by a convoy of minivans hogging my space during Sunday brunch hours. I chalked it up to confusion. My driveway sits at an odd angle from the street, with no curb to mark its edge. I set out reflective cones, simple, visible, polite. 3 days later, an unsigned HOA notice arrived in pristine legal font. Please refrain from unauthorized lawn fixtures that disrupt community aesthetic standards. I ditched the cones, irritation simmering. The next morning, a silver BMW blocked the entire mouth of my driveway. My prized Mustang, the one I'd been restoring since college, was trapped in the garage. I knocked on doors and tracked down the owner, a board member's nephew hosting brunch. He grinned like I was the jerk. It's just for a couple hours. You don't need your car, right? That's when I met Linda Peterson, HOA president, navy blazer, platinum pixie cut, clipboard of doom. She strode out like I'd interrupted a royal decree. Sir, our community values flexibility with space. This isn't a parking lot. I pointed out it was my driveway. She arched an eyebrow. Are you sure? I was. I had the deed, surveyor reports, digital renderings. I offered to show her. She waved me off. Take it up with the board. Thus began what I now call the space war. Over the next 2 weeks, cars blocked my driveway at random. I got 3 more HOA letters, each more absurd. One accused me of unauthorized curb painting. It was chalk. Another threatened fines for a confrontational, laminated sign reading, "Private driveway, please do not block." The real gut punch came when I finally got the Mustang tuned and parked it outside for less than 12 hours only to find it gone. Towed. The city didn't have it. The HOA had hired a private company, claiming it was an abandoned vehicle. A $300 invoice, plus storage fees, was taped to my door like a ransom note. When I called Linda, she said, "Classic cars draw the wrong crowd. We're maintaining a safe image." I didn't yell or threaten lawsuits. Instead, I poured a bourbon, opened my laptop, and dug into the system I'd helped build a decade ago: city zoning infrastructure. That's when I spotted it. A loophole so bizarre I thought it was a typo. My lot, thanks to an ancient zoning quirk, was classified as vertical transit compatible. In plain terms, I could legally build a personal helipad. The idea hit minute just to build it, but to use it. I didn't rush in with concrete and fanfare. I planned. I checked FAA guidelines, ensured no flight paths were affected, filed permits, attended tedious city meetings, and had an engineer inspect my property. Best part? None of it needed HOA approval. The law predated their charter. Linda was clueless, too busy citing me for aggressive posture at meetings while I quietly poured a circular slab where they towed my car. I told nosy neighbors it was an art piece about lost freedom. One asked if it was a crop circle. I shrugged. Maybe it'll summon something cool. By the time Linda realized it was a helipad complete with lights and a wind indicator, it was too late. The city had approved it, my permit was airtight, and I scheduled the final concrete pour during an HOA brunch. Nothing kills a mimosa YB like a cement truck. She stormed over, fuming. "You can't build an airport here." I smiled. "Not an airport, just a helipad. Legal. Want the permits?" She sputtered about safety, kids, chaos. I showed her the FAA letter. She threatened the city. I said they'd signed off. She demanded I dismantle it. I offered her a ride on the first flight. She turned beet red and stomped off. Next day, a reporter in a blazer showed up, grinning. Is it true you're building a helipad because the HOA blocked your driveway? I nodded. Pretty much. He asked to film the first landing. Bring popcorn, I said. Legally installing a helipad was easier than getting a no parking sign approved by the HOA. The city was amused someone was using a 1960s air transit zoning relic originally meant for a failed helicopter commute dream. The permit clerk laughed. You're serious? No one's done this in 20 years. I was dead serious. I hired Drew, a zoning consultant who looked like a skater but spoke like a lawyer. He called it genius-level pettiness and fast-tracked my paperwork. I brought in pros FAA-grade concrete, no shortcuts. The crew usually built helipads for hospitals. When I explained it was for my driveway, there was silence then. I have questions, but let's do it. Linda paced her lawn, pretending to check flowers while eyeing the site. She asked a worker what it was. He deadpanned, a really intense patio. I filed a public notice for transparency not required, but smart. A flyer went up. Vertical transit operations may occur here, fully compliant with FAA and Municipal Code 74.2b. Linda called an emergency HOA meeting. A neighbor texted me the play-by-play. She ranted about aircraft in a family zone. Someone asked if it was illegal. She snapped. It should be. When they pointed out her cronies parked on my land, she huffed. That's different, those are cars. She sent a cease and desist letter, dramatic nonsense about aerial recklessness. My lawyer, a property dispute pro, laughed and sent a reply so sharp it could have cut glass. Then I picked a helicopter, a quiet, electric two-seater, FAA approved for residential landings. The aviation salesman grinned. You're the driveway guy, huh? Word was spreading. Linda spiraled. She measured lawns, cited trash cans, wind chimes, anything. Then, at 3 a.m., my cameras caught two figures painting over my helipad markings. Floodlights snapped on, revealing her dog Walker and HOA president fleeing. I sent the footage to the FAA and city. Both slapped the HOA with warnings. Linda's emergency board meeting didn't go well. FAA inspectors dropped by unannounced. I braced for trouble, but they loved it. Tighter setup than most hospitals, one said. They asked to watch the takeoff. Bring popcorn, I replied. The helicopter arrived, sleek and silent. Linda stood on her lawn, binoculars in hand, yelling into her phone as I climbed aboard. We lifted off smooth, effortless. Below, she flailed like a stranded castaway. Neighbors cheered, some with signs, fly free. Kids drew helicopters in chalk. The mayor showed up, filming with a grin. We've been laughing about this at City Hall. We hovered briefly, then landed to applause. The reporter asked, how's it feel to take the high road literally? I glanced at Linda, still glaring. I just needed a spot where no one could tow me. That night's news segment, From Towed to Airborne, went viral. Linda filed noise and safety complaints, both rejected. Her new HO rule banning airborne devices flopped, too vague to hold. Residents turned on her. The helipad sabotage footage surfaced, and her reign crumbled. She was ousted, moved out quietly, and I hosted a helipad happy hour that drew a crowd, sodas, cupcakes, even the mayor toasting me. The neighborhood lightened up. The HOA focused on real fixes: sidewalks, dog stations. I turned the helipad into the hangar, a hangout with benches and lights. Kids learned flight basics from a vet neighbor. Online, my story trended the Sky Justice, memes, millions of VYUs. A woman wrote me, inspired to fight her own HOA. Channel 5 did a follow-up. Neighbors praised the shift. I funded a youth STEM module on zoning laws. Sky's the limit. The helipad rarely flies now, but it stands as proof. Know the rules better than the bully, and you can soar over anything.